I don't like unfocused energy in a director. I don't want a cheerleader, comedy or drama. I'm not saying like I want like dour and quiet and like Clint Eastwood, like two syllable answers to questions. It's just that like I'm probably looking to that person to offer some clarity to a thing that I've already tried to work out myself. Mm-hmm. And so when someone goes like, I don't know, get in there and just mix it up, I'm like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Because we've got a great DP and they can set up a shot, and we've already got a writer, and we've already got an editor, and we've got me hacking away at this thing the best I can. So what is you saying, go in there and mix it up? What the fuck are you doing here? You know, like, that's offering nothing.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Jake Lacy is an actor. I sat down with him in New York City to talk about the work.
When you first get a script, is there a process that you go through that is your tried and true way to try and get into the character?
I think I get more efficient at like reading something and understanding or starting to understand, like building a foundation. Like it used to be like read something 5 times before I start to like hear it, before I start to like understand the flow of a thing. And then that shortened to like being able to read it 2 times to get to the same, like lay the first brick of like what you're doing, you know? I guess lay the brick sounds like take a shit, but like put down the cornerstone, you know? You know, and so then those subsequent reads become more valuable, right? Because now you're like able to you can like accumulate more hints and clues and pieces along the way faster. I think the 2 big things, and sometimes I've worked in extreme proficiency with this and other times have been like, it's pretty slack on it. And those slack times are like bad. Like the work is not as good, you know? Like I know at the minute I get there, I'm like, I have not done what I should have done. And that's frustrating and embarrassing. But the good times is like understanding how I fit into this. There's like an old story that I heard about Tom Hanks at the table read for Splash, I think. And after the read, he was like, I crushed that, you know? And I think Ron Howard was like, hey man, you just have to love the girl. I just need you to love the girl. Like, I know you're coming from a world where like you have to generate everything, but I just need you to love this girl for an hour and a half. That's what this is. And that he has said in subsequent interviews that he's like, I look for the thing that my character does or has that nobody else has. Because that's the thing that I offer to this story that nobody else can offer to the story. Not as like a shortcut or like a gotcha, but to be like, what's the spice that I add that like the other story elements or character elements don't have, whether that's like that love for the girl, I'm the guy who loves the girl, or the fear or the disappointment, like whatever it is, you know, like to find your place in that. And so then when things are getting a little hairy or it's 2 a.m. and you're not sure what to do and you're on your 5th take and there's 2 other setups, whatever, that you can be like, right, I'm here to love the girl, you know? And then, so I lean on that sometimes. And the other would be like, through my own like personal development as a human, becoming more vulnerable or like aware of what my feelings are and not judging them. And so then when I'm like reading a script or even as, you know, reading sides for the day to shoot, right? To just read them openly, and there'll be like a little piece in there that'll like catch me, that'll sort of strike me, that then is like a little itch to be like, what is that? Like, what's that little moment? Oh, he's actually saying this. It's actually that. It's actually when you feel this way and you want that thing to happen, you know? Or at least like collecting those questions to be able to get on set and say like, man, it feels like this conversation goes a little long. it feels like he's saying this thing, but what he really wants to say is this. And the director, the writer is there and says, you're right, that's why he says this, because he can't say that. And you go, fantastic. It's like, you get the answer. It's like, yeah, your instinct was right, but you didn't quite get all the way there. I'm already aware of what you're talking about. You're right. This is why we're doing it this way, you know? Or they go, oh yeah, that's left over from a previous draft. I don't know why that's yeah. What do you want to say? Let's do it that way. And so those little like footholds, you know, to feel like I'm getting closer to the script, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, with Fosse, Verdon, Michelle, we were like on set, and Michelle was like, I made a little, you know, I was like, oh, I play this guy named Ron. I was like, oh, you know, Ron just doing this. And she was like, I love Ron. I was like, what? And she was like, he's the only person that acts with integrity in this whole show. I was like, whoa. That she had that bead on another person's character so cleanly, and that's what, in that show, Gwen admires about Ron, and it's what Ron offers her world, is like integrity.
And such the opposite of Fosse.
Yeah. And he also doesn't offer what Fosse offers, you know, which is like infinite creativity and drama and fulfillment, you know, like he doesn't, just, that's not his thing, right? He doesn't have like that ability to offer that. But to be able to hang on to that kind of thing when I'm a little bit lost, you know, or it's always just easier. I'm just thinking like we just wrapped up High Fidelity. We did like a Zoe Kravitz is the lead of this like not boot, but just like reimagining as like a 10 episode thing for Hulu, and like, you know, to really define like the world you're in and who these people are, and man, like asking all those questions that in acting school you're taught to ask and to flesh out. And I just thought that was tedious, and then over the years have understood like, no, that all just informs us speaking to one another.
Right.
It's like, how long have you been here, and how did you get here, and what's the thing, and the this and the that. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you like took a city bike or a bus or your own bike or a skateboard or a taxi or an Uber. It's like, that fact doesn't actually matter, but it definitely informs whether you've shown up like worried that your clothes are wrinkled, or shown up like fully prepared to go on a date, or whether you've shown up, you know, 45 minutes late and worried that this person's upset with you, or, you know, like it all informs like this moment before that just leads you to interacting with the person, so that you don't appear like a human in a vacuum. And in my laziest moments, I've not done that stuff. And when I see that work, I'm like, you look like a character in a vacuum. You don't look like a person who came from somewhere, who's going somewhere after this, who has a life outside of these 3 pages. You look like a guy who exists only for this moment and then is gone again. The people I admire seem like they're coming and going from a place all the time, you know, in performances.
Right, and I totally agree with you. And on the flip side of that, though, I can say like, I can't trust you to tell me what you think you look like, because I could have looked at that and thought, you're right in there. Like, I know 100%. That guy's has, you know, like, because you know that and you're seeing yourself. I mean, but even saying that is taking away from what you just said, and I don't want to, which is that those things pay dividends to me as an audience member. You know, having that deep thing, knowing how you got there, puts you right there, and I feel it differently. I'm sorry, that just matters.
There's a great, I forget where he's being interviewed. Phil Rosenthal, who's like an executive producer on Everybody Loves Raymond, was saying in this interview I was listening to, he was like, the thing that networks get wrong a lot is that they think for something to be accessible, it has to be general, has to be generic, right? And he was like, in the pilot of Raymond, there's like a thing about a fruit basket, I think, where like his wife and his mother, and they've got a fruit basket, and one is good and one's bad, and they're dueling, and he was like, not everybody gets a fruit basket from their parents for a thing, right? But like, everybody has a fruit basket in their life, right?
Cool.
Like some version of that, whether it's like the annual Christmas ornament, or it's the, you know, we're going to do a different fowl for Thanksgiving, like whatever it is, there's some like twisted, highly specific, obnoxious, like useless thing
Yeah.
that fires everyone up around some event. And the specificity in the show of how they interact with the fruit basket in that relationship is the access point.
Yes.
That specificity is the thing that an audience isn't consciously going, oh, this story is very accessible because they used a fruit basket. You know, like, that's not happening. But our joy for that show is the evidence that that's true. You know, that we don't want, like, I've just got some job. It's like, tell us what the job is.
Yeah.
Because we all know what it is to have a horrible boss. We all know what it is to have obnoxious coworkers. And you can show me exactly why those coworkers in your specific world are awful, and I'll make it my own.
Yeah.
Like, I need your specificity to let me have my specificity. And so that ends up being that thing where I'm like, oh, you're depriving, like, this story of really being told. Whether an audience sees some work I do and goes like, I bet he didn't do a lot of homework because it doesn't seem like he's coming from anywhere, and so I'm not moved, is probably not going to happen. But it is the difference between when you see someone who's like living a life on screen and someone who is perfectly fine,
Right.
you know, is totally passable as a perfectly fine actor.
Yes.
And for a while, I think I was like afraid to commit to that work because it feels so dangerous to be like, what if I really commit to doing all of this work and then I'm still just a barely passable actor? Fuck me.
Yeah.
And then in the times that I started to do it and I felt better with the work and I liked what it was at the end of the day and felt like I was really like in the mix in being able to offer something collaboratively to a project, I was like, oh, this matters. Selfishly, or like slaying the dragon, just being like, it's actually okay to commit to doing this stuff. It will pay dividends. It will offer you something. You're actually safer by committing than not.
Yes.
Rather than being like, they'll get it. I'm in a car and they'll see the car. It's like, I don't need to think about what the car looks like. It's fine, you know. But like, it never hurts. I've never been like, I was way too specific in that scene. You know, I was way too specific. That relationship was way too well defined. I don't know why I did all that work.
In terms of your comedic sensibilities, having to work in mainstream Hollywood comedic environments, have you had to adjust your comedic sensibilities to a mainstream thing, and has that affected, you know, those sensibilities? Like have you been adjusted out of something that is really funny because it is somehow out in the stratosphere, but it's not really the stratosphere, it's actually a little bit ahead, the comedy's a little bit ahead of us?
I think I understand your question, and I think I have an answer for you. I think you'd be giving me too much credit or we all would be giving me too much credit to say that like I've had to adjust what I offer to fit a mold. Because I like went to drama school and then was afforded the opportunity to be in comedy and have friends who have come from like the improv world, and I have friends who are stand-ups. And through them and through friends of friends and their shared experiences, I see those people like really spend 2 or 5 or 10 or 20 years like discovering who they are and discovering what their comedy is and discovering what their expression is and discovering what their perspective is on the world, and then are asked to, you know, whether it's being in a movie and they feel like these lines aren't funny. I don't want to say it like that. I don't want to do it like this. The thing I do is this. I don't know why you hired me for this. I want to do it this way. And that it's hard for them to be like, I just spent 15 years finding my voice and now you want me to do a different, why is I've cultivated this thing. Yeah. I've grown this thing and now you want it to be a different plant? Like, what the fuck? Or to say, you know, I don't know him personally, but to say like Bill Burr is one of the greatest working stand-ups, and then be like, why doesn't that guy have a network show? And you're like, because he doesn't want to do the jokes that the network's going to make him do. And the stuff that he does is too like I love it and I agree with it, but is too like maybe abrasive or searing for like a 9 o'clock half-hour show on a major network. You know, like they don't want that, and he doesn't want to do what they want, right? I imagine that would be a tough mold to fit into, to be like, we love the thing you do. Now can you do it inside this little box over here that's totally different than what you've discovered as your voice? But I didn't come from that. So to be a little, my like path through that, or my experience through that, is actually almost the opposite in being willing and able to adjust early on in my career to whatever someone was asking of me. Being like, you want to do it in this style? I'll do it in that style. You want it more like this? I'll do it more like that. You think this is funny? Great, I can do it like that for you. As opposed to being like, this is my point of view on the world. This is my perspective on things. And I don't know if I like where this is going, or knowing to say like, I see the moment you want here. I see the relationship we're trying to build here. I see the thing, but like, I want to do it more like this. Or the way that I think this plays out in the real world is more like that. And I want to be able to hit those notes rather than these notes, and working to like construct that, which feels more like where I'm getting to now, 10 years into working. Whereas early on, I was just very eager to please and be validated. And I am just now getting to where I have a sense of my perspective on the world maybe, and being more willing and able to like put that into my work, and hopefully getting a little better at, like in auditions, offering, you know, when they say like, offer your version of this, right? And me being like, what does that fucking even mean?
Yeah.
You know, like my version, as
They
if there was.
They do say that, like that's a thing.
Yeah, and I understand what they mean when I see it.
Yeah.
Right, where I go like, oh, that's that guy's version of this thing. Where you see it more like if you go see a Sam Shepard play that maybe you've seen 4 other productions of, and you go, oh, that's that guy's version of that role.
Yeah.
Oh, that's that person's version of that role. Interesting. I didn't like this take as much as that take on it. I like the production from 5 years ago at Williamstown. You know, like whatever it is that you can like see what they mean by, oh, that's this person's take on that, and that's that person's take. But when these are all yet to be fulfilled roles, and you're just hoping to be a part of it, and thinking like, what's my take on this? I'm just now starting to figure out like what my take on that is. Where I was like, how can you have a take without like changing the character or the dialogue? Isn't there like an ideal world of like who this character is, and then I should be able to fulfill those demands, which ultimately looks like a person just trying to fulfill demands. It doesn't look like a human being. And so just now starting to release that and be like, I'm going to do my version of the thing. And if they like it, then that's great, because it means I'm already starting on like an honest level where I'm like, this is my thing. This is how I want to do this. And you hired the guy that did the thing you liked. So let's keep working on that. Let's cultivate that thing. As opposed to me trying to like hit marks to get attaboys and then winding up on set and being like, oh God, now what? I have no sense of self. I have no sense of who this person is. I have no, you know, that is just starting to like arrive. So I haven't felt hemmed in by a system and been like, why can't I do the thing I do, as much as being hemmed in by my own like parameters as a human being, and just starting to like release those enough to feel like my real self is like available for work.
That's interesting.
And hopefully starting to understand more like projects I don't think are going to facilitate that, to be like, don't sign up for that. And if you're going to sign up for it because you need the money, know that that's what you're doing. And so when they ask you to do a thing where you realize you're really uncomfortable or it feels icky or whatever it is, because it's for any number of reasons, just remind yourself that you took this because you needed a paycheck. You know, don't get all twisted about like, that's not legit. I would never. It's like, well, you didn't take this job for that reason. You took this job to get paid. So get paid and give them the thing they need. And you can go home and find another project where you can really offer yourself.
Right.
Whereas before I was like conflating all of those. It was all the same. And so then I was like, I'm not validated by this work, but I'm also unhappy with the job I'm doing, like the quality of work I'm producing. And I'm also down on the thing I'm making. You know, it's like this sort of cyclical thing that continues on.
You have talked about your experience on Carol and specifically working with Todd Haynes as like a very reverent experience, and him as director in particular, as a way of talking about what direction works well for you, or what type of director works well for you, and if that has evolved for you, like, because you've been talking about how things have been evolving.
Yeah, I just love Todd. As a creative individual and also just as a person, I think it's just like, just wonderful. I mean, that Carol is a good example of me being out of my depth, I would say. That like, I wish I had more to offer. In retrospect, I wish I had more to offer that project than what I had to offer. Probably in work ethic, also in like just like comfort and ease and knowledge of like, I mean, Jesus, Rooney is so good in that movie, you know, to like be opposite her and to want to try to like hang in there with her. Cause like, Jesus, it's like getting called up to the majors and you're like, I'm out of high school. This lady's pitching like 100 miles an hour. Like, do you want me to bunt? Can I bunt? Is that allowed? But I think I don't like unfocused energy in a director. I don't like.
Ooh, that's good. I never heard anyone say that. I like that.
The like, kind of like, I don't want a cheerleader.
Yeah.
Comedy or drama, TV or film. Like, I don't want a cheerleader. I don't want someone who, I'm not saying like I want like dour and quiet and like Clint Eastwood, like two syllable answers to questions. It's just that like, I'm probably looking to that person to offer some clarity to a thing that I've already tried to work out myself. And so when someone goes like, I don't know, get in there and just mix it up. I'm like, what are you doing here? Why are you here? Because we've got a great DP and they can set up a shot, and we've already got a writer, and we've already got an editor, and we've got me hacking away at this thing the best I can. So what is you saying, go in there and mix it up? What the fuck are you doing here? You know, like, that's offering nothing.
It's actually offering negative nothing.
It's unhelpful.
It's unhelpful. You're literally...
It's stressing me out. It's stressing out the cast. It's stressing out the crew. Like, don't do that, you know? The thing I often... The like, shooting process that I really like is coming in for a scene and, like, just saying the words with the other actors. Either sort of working out where we think we would be, along with the director saying, you know, I imagine that you would be here. It's your office, so you're probably, you know, doing this. I want to find a way to get you here because I want to end with the two of you in this shot because I think that tells our story, you know. And sort of working through that to understand where they're coming from visually, and then to also offer up, like, I really don't want to get too close to this person, X, Y, you know, for whatever reason, like for the story that I think we're trying to tell here, and to find a way to service both those things, or to be able to have that brief rehearsal time where you go like, let's run it both ways. Let's see what it brings up both ways. And that same thing that's like I was saying, like being able to read a script and staying open to what kind of like sparks a little bit, where you go like, oh man, that really got me for some reason. That really like, oof, that really stings to read those words. One person saying that to another. Or I laughed out loud the minute I heard this thing drop. Is like, oh man, that's great. Like I want to find a way to like preserve the fun of that, you know? And to do that in rehearsal as well, to be like, let's rehearse it once where you come in first and then this person comes around, or then let's rehearse it again where you come in first and you just sit, right? And see what that does for us. And to like be able to kind of pick and choose the magic to then put together into the best possible thing, as opposed to coming in and a director just saying like, I want you here and I want you here and I want to be able to come around on this side, so we just have to make sure that like you can get around here by this line, is a little like, well man, why don't you just direct animated stuff, because I don't know why you need me here, you know? Like I guess my contribution is
light box
voices. Yeah, it just feels very like, it feels like the little thing that I have to offer this thing has been like taken away because someone likes the shot better over here, or you know.
That's what always fascinated me about like the example that you just said of like, okay, you're going to take 3 steps, you have to land here on this line, and then actors just being like, okay, and then they go off and then they take all that mechanical thing and try and make it into something organic that they can use. And I've never like that whole process of them having to do that. It takes energy. And sometimes it ends up being good because they're so good, but it's like, why do we have to go through? Why do they have to go through all that?
I was very good at that, like again, a version of being like unproductive fulfillment, being like, I can hit my mark every time, and you're like, you know, that might not be the mark of a great actor. I'm not saying great actors shouldn't hit their mark, you know, but like being proficient at like doing what you're told is not the same as like creating and living a life. And like I'm just starting to like trust that and to figure out how to be okay with like the mess and how to be okay with the sloppiness that just is actually like existing with a person and trying to affect them and be affected. And but I was very good at that, like 3 steps, hit the thing, smile this way, look at that, not know what's happening, go back to your, you know, like, and finding solace in that and like safety and being able to like hide in a mechanical movement instead of being like, you're going to have to be seen. Someone's going to have to actually see you. And hoping now to like pursue that thing, you know, as like that door has kind of cracked open a little to be like, oh, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to be a part of. This is how I want to, whether that's in a comedy or a drama. But people, Sam Rockwell or like John C. Reilly, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who have been able to like, with creative integrity, maneuver between these worlds, that like John C. Reilly can do like P.T. Anderson films and also do Steve Brule on Adult Swim, is like, that's the greatest. You know, that like nobody was like, hey man, you really should like stick to this thing over here, you know, or that you know, that Sam could be that good in like Fosse, Verdon, but also in 3 Billboards, but also in Iron Man. And you're like, fucking wow. And in each of those is his own self. Not that he's not a different character, but that there's like an integrity and like sense of true self brought to those things is like so much greater than being like, I can shapeshift into this type of actor now. I can shapeshift into this type of actor now. Is like, that's not actually fulfilling for me. And I've spent a lot of time thinking I was being fulfilled by it, and I'm just now starting to try to like undo that a little, to like wind it back a little bit. I think clarity, and also like, clarity and like collaboration. It's also like dependent on like the style. It's like, so like Wes Anderson is like methodical because he's creating portraits, like moving portraits. And so there is like an element of saying like, you have to sit here and turn this way because the portrait that I'm building is of this. It's a sculptural moving art piece, and I would be honored to be a part of that, you know? I certainly wouldn't show up and be like, no, man, my guy sits over here, you know, like, because you're working in a different style and a different manner of storytelling. And if you can offer some, again, like that sense of self and that integrity of your work into the world that they're working in, then you get to sort of like fuse the two, which is how people like flourish in his world, even though that world is maybe different than another world they've flourished in, you know, like to see Bill Murray like cross through there, or like Edward Norton, you know, be wonderful in those films, or Owen Wilson. I just watched Midnight in Paris again, and also The Royal Tenenbaums again, and was like, wow, man, you're wonderful in all these, but also like are participating in the world that you're in. You're not trying to be in Die Hard while you're doing The Royal Tenenbaums. You know what I mean? Like you're bringing yourself to this, and then like allowing the thing to unfold.
It's rare for me to sit with somebody who I can see different roads that you can take, and we can sit down in 5 years from now and I'd be like, oh wow, that's okay, yeah, I could see how you would go down that road, but you could have went down this road too.
That'd be fun. We should come back in 5 years.
I mean, but are you imagining a road though, and are you choosing things based on like, all right, well, that's going to take me off this road, and I know what road now I want to go down now, because I've evolved, and I'm knowing myself more, I'm learning more about myself, I'm learning more about this whole thing, and this is the road I want to go down now. And you know, you tell your people that, and then, you know, is that what's happening now?
It is. It's 3 answers. The first is like, most of the jobs I get are auditions, you know, and the offers that I get are probably things I don't want to do. Which is that's just, for better and worse, that's what my situation is, you know. I'm also very fortunate to get to audition for things that I'd like to be in, you know, that the stuff that comes my way, 90% of the time I'm like, that would be a lot of fun. I'd really like to pursue that and explore that and work with those people, and, you know, so I'm not auditioning for stuff that I'm like, oof, God, I kind of hope this doesn't happen. And I'm, for the moment, financially stable enough that like when the offers that come through that are like a nicer paycheck than maybe the creatively fulfilling jobs, but are not creatively fulfilling, that I'm in a spot for, you know, the foreseeable 6 months or whatever, that I can say like, I'm not going to go do that. Thank you for asking. The second part is touching back a little bit into like getting auditions or material to work on and saying like, I'm going to do the thing that I want to do with this, which isn't blowing up what they've written, and isn't saying like, he's supposed to be from Mississippi, but I'm going to make him from Oregon. Being like, no, that's not what the story is, man. That's not what, no, you can't rewrite it. It's just like finding a way to offer what I think I can offer, or offer what I want to offer, as opposed to offering what I think they expect me to offer. And if they don't care for it, then they don't care for it. Then they found the guy who's going to do what they want, you know? And the last part is, for a long time, like I absorbed this goal or narrative as my goal and my narrative, which is like, get into that Marvel universe, get into that DC world, get into some project that like pays you an offensive amount of money for an obscene number of years, and be like stable and set up forever. And also play the same character like every 18 months for 6 months at a clip in perpetuity. Because even with like Avengers Endgame, literally Endgame is now just a launching pad for new things. Do you know what I mean? You're like, there is no end, guys. It's not gonna stop. Like, there's no way. You can't make a movie that makes more money than anyone's ever made and be like, see ya, we're going out on top. Like, that won't happen. That's not like how capitalism works, you know? But I absorbed that like narrative and goal as my narrative and goal for a while, to be like, I gotta get in that thing. I gotta be a part of that. I gotta, you know? And I would like the trappings that come with that. I'd like to buy a place in New York.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a vacation home. I'd like to know that my grandkids could go to any college they wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like all the amenities that come with it. And I am open to what happens. I'm open to, like, if that came my way, I'd be like, great. And I also see like the actors I admire who are 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 years older than I am, and think, you know, Robert Duvall did okay without being a superhero. You know, like James Caan did all right without, Ray Liotta did all right without ever putting on a cape or a mask or like having a superpower. You know, like those guys did okay. Those guys created some work that I revere. Those guys worked with people that I revere. And so I'm also like remembering that I didn't start acting or go to acting school or like come here and get like fired up in New York by like tentpole productions. Yes. You know, that's not the thing that like I fell in love with. I fell in love with E.T. and I fell in love with Goodfellas and Ghostbusters and Being There and Mary Poppins and, you know, like films that like transported me. And so that's the path I want to be on. If that happens to coincide with like making a whole lot of money, great. Sounds awesome, man. That's great. Like, who doesn't want that thing? Well, I don't know, maybe people don't, but I do. I'd love it, you know, shit. But I used to take it really like, I'd go in for those things or audition for these big things, and I thought that I wanted it so badly that when it wouldn't work out, I would be like, boy, that's a point against me as an actor. That it's like, they don't want to bet real money on this guy. They'll bet like some little indie money on this guy, and they'll bet some like fourth banana, you know, fifth, ninth guy on the call sheet money. But like, we don't want to make you the guy. And took it really personally, you know? And then now that I've kind of released like, oh, that would validate me. That would make me a real actor in the eyes of who knows. Then if I go in for that stuff and they say, no, we're going to go in another direction, I'm like, sure. Okay. It's the same as not getting an indie movie that I went and met with and they give it to some other guy that he and I always go up against. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't have the same like, I'm no good. They didn't give me the stamp of approval. It's like, well, fuck it, dude. Whose stamp is that anyways? Like, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Because at least I feel fulfilled by the path I want to be heading on, right? That's like my own defined path. And if those paths coincide, that's cool. If they happen to run parallel, that's cool. And if they don't, that's cool, you know? Because the other side of that was me trying to find a way to be like, I'm indifferent to it.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, I did. I got it or I didn't get it. Hey, it's cool. And that was just a mask for being like, I desperately need this thing. But in releasing that element of it, then I can be not indifferent, but just at peace with it. I'm not like, it doesn't matter if I make millions of dollars, whatever. Who cares? Money. Who cares about money? It's like, I do. I care about money. But I see the way that people have put careers together and done work that I want to do, or that version of work. And my end of this business, my version of this business is always like, I'll take whatever they throw at me. Because like, I'm not fielding offers. I'm not batting away offers for this, that, and the other. It's like I audition, they come to me with a test, I audition, you know, like maybe I have an offer for this or for that and I'll take it. And so then it's a matter of like, how do I do the work I'd like to do with this instead of like the work I think that's expected of me. And that is the freeing thing. That's like the path I want to try to like stay inside, you know? In High Fidelity, there's like a scene, without giving anything away, it's just like, I sort of offer up like meeting up again with somebody. And it appears that they're sort of shutting me down. And my like actory response was to be like, as that character was sort of like, oh yeah, hey, no, it's no big deal, you know. And they were like, you know, you can also just like take that in and actually see that the person's like pulling away and let them know that you know they're pulling away, which is like a way more human, grounded, like present thing to do than to sort of be like, oh no, there's nobody here and I'm okay and it's all right and like ha 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 ha, which is sort of my own Jake thing, is to be like, it's okay, there's nothing, don't worry about it over here, this is all taken care of, guys, you can go look at the thing over there. As opposed to being like, I see you and you see me and we're gonna be right here and be present to each other, is like, whoa. That's where like it gets good. That's where it can get like meaty. So just trying to find some more of that, you know, whether it's a couple episodes of TV or whether it's a film, or, you know, but to be like, how do we get in the ring like that? How do we wrestle with that together? That's what I want to like hunt down.
Yes.
You know?
I hope you'll come back.
Dude, this was an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure was mine.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Jake Lacy, thank you so much.
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.